Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm going to do this a couple of hours before I have to go into work tonight. Um, but apparently, Ben Bates has finished up his, I guess you could say, his explanation on Sally's redesign. Now, a lot of people, a lot of fans, pretty much figured out, even before all this BS, and you got to pardon me, excuse me, I should say, got a cough. I don't know where I got it from. But anyway, Ben Bates basically has finished, as of I guess yesterday, has finished the basically the redesign process. In other words, explanation of how the redesigns came about. Excuse me. Of how the redesigns came about. Now, Vorak, Vorak 295, about 12 hours and 20 minutes ago, posted this topic. He called it a group topic, the redesign process. And this is what Vorak 295 had to say, and I quote: "So all the explanations of the redesigning of Sally have been released by Ben Bates and can be found here for easy reference." And he gives um, three different links to the three-part series, and I'll provide the link to this group topic down in the description box. But continuing on, Vorak says they're fascinating, but he wants to know what your thoughts, our thoughts, basically, as fans, on it. Hence why it's a group topic and all. Now, Vorak295 gives his thoughts. And I quote what Vorak295 says, and I quote, excuse me, and I quote what Vorak295 says, and he says, quote, "My thoughts," because he's given his thoughts, quote, "Well, I basically read them, especially the third part, to teach myself how not to redesign a character. And I don't mean don't turn them into a genroid, mutilated, viscerate them, and make sure the character is a-okay with their new body." Quote. That's obviously, that's obvious. I mean, to help myself make sure that the character still looks like the character and not a distant relation or a different animal with the same color scheme. He continues on, and I quote, "First off, let's discuss Sega. Now, I get that a lot of us were under the impression that the Segafication was either being mandated by Sega or Archie was trying to suck up to Sega so that they wouldn't take the license away. However, this proves that, at least in the case of Sally, that isn't the case. They were doing this anyway, and it just happened to coincide with Sega tightening the grip and the relationship between the two companies straining. Looking at part 3, you can see that a lot of the preliminary okay, looking at part 3, you can see that a lot of the preliminary designs look much more like Sally than the final version, but they were still available. This means that we could have easily gotten a more Sally-like new Sally. But we didn't because the artist wanted to remove Sally's cheek fur. He also didn't want her head to be round, but it turns out that removing the cheek fur from Sally makes her head round. Oops. On the whole, I can't really fault the steps that were taken with designs. Okay. On the whole, I can't really fault the steps that were taken with designs for the two mecha bodies. Okay, excuse me. What I'm trying to say is, trying to quote him and say is, on the whole, I can't fault the steps that were taken with the designs for the two mecha bodies. What I can fault is that the sketches of weaponized Mecha Sally show her as an actual dangerous opponent with only a few weapons. Well, what we got was more like a squirrel shaped Omega with all the menace of a buzz bomber. And the pics of Mecha Sally MK1 from every angle kind of prove my point that she looks like a bobblehead. However, and I continue on, and Vorak continues on, and I quote, however, part 3 is a whole different can of worms. A different combination of elements would have helped her look more natural as opposed to a synthetic, rather doll-like, smooth Sally that we got. All of the head designs except for number 1 look better than number 3. Okay, some of them look like some of them look a bit like Fiona, but Archie seemed to be wholly okay with Fiona being a Sally clone anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. Excuse me. But they all look more like Sally than 3 does. A different combination would lead to her actually looking like Sally, whereas the closest new Sally gets to her original self is looking like a close approximation of her non-canon daughter. I think the most Sally-ish would be body 7 and head number 2 or head number 7 too, with face number 2. That particular design would work perfectly, and with the mecha stuff being wiped, I'd probably be wholly okay with it. Sure, it wouldn't look all that different, but that's a good thing. Then there's the lack of regard for the character herself. Things like, quote, I don't like brown unquote, shouldn't have a remarkable effect on the design choices. If the character is brown and has been since not long after her debut, okay. All right, let me reword that. Let me reread that again. I apologize. Things like quote unquote, I don't like brown shouldn't have a remarkable effect on the design process. If the character is brown, if the character is brown and has been since not long after her debut. I get that she was pink at first. Actually, she was orange, then pink. Orange with yellow hair, then pink with black hair. But seeing her pink again is a rare thing in fan art. So it's pretty safe to say that, yeah, she's brown with red hair. QED. Trying to eliminate such features just because one can is a bad idea. I didn't make Super Scourge a different color when I easily could have. I didn't get rid of the red around Jamel, Emerald 2.0's eyes until he had himself repainted back into his original color scheme. And considering the few characters that are left after the purge, the only brown characters are Nicole, Antoine, Max, and Sally herself. That's not really an overabundance. Also, Bates also didn't finish the design. What was shown at the con was considered by him to be unfinished, though Jampole went ahead and used it anyway, and Bates himself never finished it. So when we were saying, quote, they said they would change it and they haven't, unquote, well, there's your reason. Looking at the reaction to part 3, I'm seeing a lot of people who like the new look for bringing out her tomboyish side. Except Sally isn't a tomboy. As we've discussed before, she's a feminine character who doesn't wear skirts. That doesn't make her a tomboy. It makes her a feminine character who doesn't wear skirts. Seriously, last I checked, Bunny, Loop, Rouge, Hershey, Julie Sue, Shade, etc. weren't tomboys either. This is called sending the wrong message. Excuse me. Quote, do yourselves a favor and don't follow this example. If you can't think of a new look that looks better than the character's own design, then don't use a new look. Use the character's own design. But that's my opinion. I don't want to see yours. Group topics and such. And that was Vorok295 that said that. Now, I looked over all the design, all three parts. I've read a little bit of part 3 and stuff, and both part 1 and 2. And personally, when you want to redesign a character, now I'm not an animation artist or a comic book artist or anything, but when you want to redesign a character and say, this is what she's going to look like after such and such event, you've got a lot to go through. Apparently, Ben Bates, I guess, wanted maybe to try to keep a little bit of what Sally was. Then again, who knows? But to me, when I look at the redesign of Sally, I think when you take a look at 256 and you look at her facial expression when Sonic arrives and Amy's like, oh, we do all this work and he takes all the glory. Or something like that. It's like, we do all the work and he takes... Well, you get the idea. Sally has that look, the half-closed eyelids look, that shows you she is Sally. Yes, she's redesigned. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing you can really do to change it right now, even though there's a lot of people over at the Save Archie group that are doing their best to say, hey, look, we want things back to the way they were, or at least bring back the comic to what it was. But to me, the redesign is not really a big issue. As long as you could tell it's Sally in a sense, it's still Sally. I mean, take a look at the preview pages someone put up for Sonic 258. It's still Sally. It's still her, no matter what you think. It's still her. Now, after this whole situation is done and over with, which I would project is going to be next year, maybe not, seeing as though we're in 258 right now, so perhaps next year. No, wait. Yeah, definitely next year. We're in 258, so definitely next year. I mean, despite how you look at it, and how it's going to come to an end, and I could say my opinion next year, possibly as soon as it could be, you don't know how long these redesigns are going to last. I mean, a lot of people, sure, the artist and the staff will say, oh, these are permanent. Okay, fine, they're permanent. But sometimes permanent is not forever. Remember when they said that when Sally got roboticized that her mecha look would be the look going forward? A lot of us, as fans, took that the wrong way, and we thought, oh great, they're going to keep her roboticized forever. Wrong. They brought her back. And of course, the design is kind of similar to her mecha design, if you will. But again, to me, I don't really hate the design. I mean, to me, when I see the character, I still see Sally. I really do. I really still see Sally. The same with Bunny. You know, you could say what you want about her redesign. I still see Bunny there. Antoine, same thing. Rotor, same thing. Heck, you take a look at the Sonic Boom designs for the character, and when I see Amy, I still see Amy. You know? Knuckles, despite the fact that they made him into a huge Hulk-like design, I still see Knuckles. I still see Sonic. I still see Tails. It doesn't matter what the design looks like as long as it's still the same character. And as long as they got some features that identify that it is said character. Like I said, Sally's expression in 256 when she told Amy, hey, first we do this, then we take glory, or whatever, right? That's Sally's look. That is. You take a look at 257, same things. You see a lot of hints there. Now, I will admit that the lower eyelids coming up is not Sally-like, but still, most of the other expressions is her. So again, I do believe that this is coming to an end. This story arc is going to come to an end in 275. But the point is, whether the redesigns end then or they just continue on forever, it's not going to be a problem, folks. I mean, a lot of you are starting to embrace the redesign of a character like Sally because, like me, you're noticing that, hey, facially, it's still her. I mean, take a look at some examples throughout media history, animation stuff. Take a look at, let's say, take a look at Wild Cowboys of Moo Mesa, second season. Calamity Kate. Take a look at her. First season, she looked very, well, she was a girl, you knew that, but she was very tomboyish, right? Second, her facial didn't really show, was feminine and all that, but wasn't as, let's say, feminine as Miss Lily's. But then you take a look at season 2, what's her redesign look like? More feminine. Get it? But it was still her. That was the point. It was still her. Did anybody complain with Sad AM when season 2 came around? No. Because it's common for redesigns to happen. Sure, it may be a season or two later in a television show, like an animated television show. Or it may be so many issues from the very beginning or from certain points before it happens. In the case of comic books. But the point is, it does happen. Take a look at Aladdin, for goodness sake. Aladdin, the animated series. As we got towards the end of the series there, Aladdin had a bit of a redesign. He had like some kind of kamabon, or elastic kamabon around his waist. His vest was a little different. You take a look at Jasmine. She still was kind of Jasmine-like, but she also had a white dress, stuff like that at times. So there were redesigns. Heck, you take a look at the movie, King of Thieves. If they wanted to keep Aladdin and Jasmine the same designs as they were before, they would have, but they didn't. Take a look at Mickey and Minnie right now. And some of the other classic Disney characters. They've been redesigned to be more of a combination of the classic 20s look and the new look. But guess what? Take a look at Clubhouse. It's still going, right? Mickey's Clubhouse is still going. It's still the modern designs. Folks, the modern designs or the designs you know of characters are still around. And you can go back and read about them, look at them, watch them, if you will. It doesn't matter. The point is, folks, just because a character gets redesigned doesn't mean they're going to change personality-wise. Doesn't mean that. Take a look at X-Men, the animated series from the 1990s. When a new animation studio took over, they could have easily continued what the previous studio did. They could have continued using the previous studio's animation designs, but they didn't. This new studio, whether it was whether it was a Marvel animation studio or not, they went and they decided to go in the direction to make the characters look more like what they did in the comic books. Jean Grey went from having a ponytail when she wore her X-Men outfit to having her long hair. Get what I'm saying, folks? But it was still Jean Grey. Take a look at the Ninja Turtles, the original Ninja Turtles, the 80s to 90s Ninja Turtles. When 1994 came out and the final seasons, notice the Red Sky seasons came about, the Turtles were redesigned, but it was still the same Turtles from when the show first started. It was the same ones. They just had a more darker look that was supposed to be more closely resembling what they look like in the movies. No one complained. When the 2K3 Turtles series came around and they did Fast Forward, they got redesigns there. When they did Back to the Sewers, they got redesigns there. Did anybody complain? No. The point is, there are certain things people will complain about. I'm a good example of that. I take a look at the whole Venom situation with like Hulk and the Agents of Smash and Ultimate Spider-Man, if you will, or I take a look at some of the things going on in the Nickelodeon Turtles, and I will voice my opinion. I'm not afraid to do that. But I'm also willing to understand and accept, okay, maybe this is why it's happening. Maybe this is why. The point is, folks, just because something changes doesn't mean the character changes themselves. Just because they got a new look doesn't mean they change at all. Okay? So, to me, I have no problem with Sally's redesign. I have no problem with Bunny's redesign. I have no problem with Antoine's rotors. I have no problem with them. I have no problem with Amy Rose's or Knuckles or Tails or Sonic's redesign and Sonic Boom. I have no problem. If Nintendo decide, here's this. If Nintendo ever decides to, one day redesign Mario, redesign Luigi, redesign Daisy, redesign Peach, and make them a little bit more different, give them new outfits, maybe make them look a little younger, but still keep them as they are, will I complain? No. Because even though they might be redesigned to look a little bit more younger, the outfits might be different, if it's still them personality-wise, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. And that's about it. So to me, I have no problem with the redesigns of the characters like Sally and Bunny and all of them. So that's just my opinion. And let me know what yours is. I'll provide the link down below to the journal. And I will talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care.